Sunday night, defending their actions.
Obviously, the comments that he made over the last number of days were not helpful.
The government fired its ambassador to China, but is the damage already done? And where does it leave the detained Canadians caught in the middle?
The judge in this case is going to struggle with the sheer magnitude of the tragedy.
Tomorrow, the sentencing hearing for the driver who killed so many on the Broncos bus. What punishment fits that crime, and just what will the judge consider?
We lost our twin boys in rain.
But weeks later, a package of free formula landed at her door. So how did the company know she was ever pregnant? A Go Public investigation on how your private information can be shared without you knowing. This is The National. MPs will be back in the House of Commons tomorrow, but the government is already on the defensive about how it's handled the escalating diplomatic dispute with China and the firing of Canada's top diplomat in Beijing. John McCallum is now Canada's former ambassador to China after his recent unscripted comments about Huawei CFO Meng Wanzhou, saying it would be great for Canada if the U.S. dropped her extradition request, even going so far as to lay out legal arguments that could help her fight the case. As Katie Simpson tells us, the Trudeau government is now offering its first explanation of McCallum's unprecedented firing.
I'll just say my statement speaks for itself, and I'm going back to China tomorrow.
John McCallum's restraint ended there. Once inside this Vancouver luncheon on Friday, he repeated the words that got him in so much trouble earlier in the week. Within 24 hours, he was fired, and the government is now in damage control mode.
Obviously, the comments that he made over the last number of days were not helpful and did not reflect the position of the government of Canada.
McCallum is accused of undercutting the government's position on the arrest of Meng Wanzhou. The Huawei executive was arrested by Canadian authorities on an extradition request from the U.S. Ottawa has gone to great lengths to argue there will be no political interference in Meng's case.
And as I said, I think Ms. Meng has quite a strong case.
But twice last week, McCallum advocated for Meng's release, musing some sort of deal could be cut between the U.S. and China.
And to think that he did this on his own without approval from the Prime Minister's office, I think is naive.
The Conservatives question if McCallum's real crime was getting caught and whether he was instructed to quietly deliver a China-friendly message. The Liberals say not true.
I think floating any type of suggestion in the absence of any factual basis is actually quite irresponsible, given that there are two lives which are at stake right now.
China is criticizing McCallum's dismissal. An editorial in a state-linked tabloid quotes a Chinese folk saying, "You cannot live the life of a whore and expect a monument to your chastity," accusing Canada of being hypocritical. The Prime Minister is now looking for a new ambassador, and he's being encouraged to put more resources into dealing with China.
Perhaps the Prime Minister would do well to have a special envoy like Jean Chrétien, who could be sent over to China to just focus on the detainees.
The second in command at the Canadian Embassy in China, Jim Nicol, is now in charge. His top priority is preparing for consular visits with the two detained Canadians in the next couple of weeks. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Ottawa. For more on the impact of John McCallum's dismissal, we turn to someone who served as the Canadian ambassador to China just before McCallum, Guy Saint-Jacques, and he joins me now from Montreal. Mr. Saint-Jacques, can you just start by giving us a sense of how you think the dismissal of Mr. McCallum may complicate our relationship with China further?
Well, I must say first that when I learned yesterday that he had resigned, I was quite saddened because I feel for Mr. McCallum and his wife, but also this is happening at a very bad time, right in the middle of an ongoing crisis with China. But I think that, in fact, with him leaving his position as ambassador, it should help to clarify the Canadian position with the Chinese government, because otherwise, I think they might have thought that he was speaking for the Canadian government, that he was trying to provide messages on the Canadian position, and there was a risk also that this could undermine the legal process that has started.
What do you think it means for the Canadians who are detained right now? Should they be concerned about their cases now that there is no ambassador officially in place?
I think it creates a challenge. I don't think there will be a direct impact on the Canadians that who are detained. Although obviously it's always better to have an ambassador in place, and we have to be realistic. It will take a few months at the minimum before Mr. McCallum is replaced, and I think that's why probably it would be important for the Prime Minister to consider either to send a high-level envoy who would be tasked with trying to resolve the issue, or at least lower the temperature with the Chinese, because I think we are at the stage where we need a good face-to-face dialogue.
And when you say it should be a high-level envoy, do you think the government should go as far as sending Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland?
Well, I think it's obviously it's for the Prime Minister to decide, and there are a number of people that could go, but I think what is important is to send someone of some significance to show to the Chinese that we pay attention and we want to hear what they have to say. I think Mrs. Freeland would be a good choice, but on the other hand, also the National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister would also be someone senior, and it would send the message that we want to sit down and have a good discussion.
Mr. Saint-Jacques, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Merci beaucoup. À la prochaine.
Well, whatever the Prime Minister chooses to do, you can bet he will get an earful from the opposition tomorrow. That's when Parliament returns from the winter break. The China standoff, the economy, the Kingston terror raids, expect question period to be very, very lively. Don't forget, we are now in an election year, 9 months away. Every political point matters. The campaign may not have officially begun, but as Salima Shivji explains, mapping out strategy sure has.
The Conservative Party is preparing for battle. The leader testing his message not only on his caucus, but also on Canadians.
If Justin Trudeau is re-elected, your taxes will go up. Everything, from the price of the gasoline you put in your car to the food you put on your table.
Whether the Liberals have indeed hurt or helped your bottom line will be a key part of the campaign. But while the Conservatives focus on the economy, the Liberals have a rallying cry all their own.
The Conservatives pretend to be for the people, but that couldn't be further from the truth. This is still very much the party of Stephen Harper.
As the leaders tinker with campaign strategies, candidates are learning the basics, including lessons on the art of campaigning. Former CFL player Peter Diakowski, for one, aims to convince Hamilton voters to choose Tory blue.
I've got a really exciting opportunity to turn a riding blue for the first time in about 40 years, give or take.
Hi, Rosalind. How are you?
And with 9 months to go, the door knocking has begun. Liberal candidate and former Olympian kayaker Adam Van Couverden hopes to win the riding of Milton near Toronto.
It's a very, very interesting community, and its needs are changing too. I didn't get involved in politics to do something easy, just like I didn't get involved in sports to do something easy.
NDP! But perhaps October seems the furthest away for the NDP. They're still focusing on this candidate, their own leader, Jagmeet Singh, who must win a crucial by-election next month just to enter the House. And he's getting help from a prominent NDP figure with issues of his own, former MP Sven Robinson.
It's tough right now, there's no question about that. People still don't know Jagmeet Singh, and I'm absolutely confident that as they get to know him, they're going to see that they've got a fighter.
Starting tomorrow, those messages will be tested out here in the West Block as Parliament resumes for the last session before the election. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Ottawa.
West Block is actually new digs for MPs. Parliament's proper home is, of course, in the centre block, and it's undergoing extensive renovations. For the next decade or more, they'll work here. The desks are in now, but the now refurbished West Block was first closed back in 2011 for more than $800 million in upgrades. There's now double the square footage, along with a striking new glass canopy. Inside that canopy is where the chamber now sits, and just like Centre Block, it's connected to the rest of the complex by a series of tunnels, which is how I got lost just last Wednesday. Let's turn now to the U.S., Adrian, where hundreds of thousands of government workers are heading back to work tomorrow.
Indeed, and they will be getting paid again finally as this, the longest U.S. government shutdown in history ends, or at least is put on pause. So here's what we know. Donald Trump blinked on Friday, agreeing to reopen the government without money for his border wall. But this is not over. The standoff with Democrats goes on with, as Paul Hunter tells us, threats and attacks that just keep on coming.
The 2020 U.S. presidential election is still a long way away, but tell that to Democrats. That's California Democratic Senator Kamala Harris at the first rally of her run to defeat Donald Trump. Her message:
America, we are better than this.
Half a dozen other Democrats are already in the race. Some 24 more may join. Why so many? So fast?
Thank you very much.
Consider just the past few days for Trump, forced by Democrats to end for now the government shutdown he started without his key demand for a border wall fulfilled, bringing derision for Trump even from conservatives. Pushing back today his acting chief of staff.
Ultimately, he'll be judged by the end of by what happens at the end of this process, not by what happened this week.
But that's hardly the only issue on Trump's plate this weekend.
I am human, but I did make some errors, but they're errors that would be inconsequential.
For all who'd listened today and all weekend, longtime Trump ally Roger Stone defended himself on charges laid Friday of lying, obstruction, and witness tampering in the special counsel's investigation into the 2016 Trump campaign and Russian efforts to fix the election. And though Stone today was adamant
that this indictment is thin as piss on a rock,
it's pretty much what Americans are talking about right now, and Trump's falling popularity, and a litany of other challenges he faces, including that the shutdown may start all over again in 3 weeks. Indeed, the question today, is the president prepared to shut things down again if he doesn't get his border wall?
Yeah, I think he actually is.
And let's start now!
And so the battle to find a candidate to take on Trump directly heats up. The mantra, for now, for freshly emboldened Democrats, only 21 months till Election Day. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Now a look at some other developing stories we are watching tonight on The National. 2 major pileups involving dozens of vehicles on Quebec's highways. At least a dozen tow trucks were called out to this crash involving more than 75 vehicles. The other crash involved 20. Snow squalls were a factor. Luckily, police say injuries were minor.
It was definitely a very challenging exercise. The weather was very, very cold, as I'm sure you know. However, we're well trained, we're well equipped. We do this type of training on a regular basis.
But this wasn't like any other Army exercise. About 20 members of the Royal Canadian Dragoons suffered frostbite earlier this month. They were taking part in a winter survival training session near Petawawa, Ontario, while temperatures dropped to -31. The military says soldiers were sent to hospital and have now returned home or are back at work.
The families and the friends of the Humboldt Broncos have waited nearly a year for this. Tomorrow, the sentencing hearing begins for the driver of the semi that crashed into the teen bus, killing 16 and injuring 13. So many lives taken or changed forever. It will likely take days to hear all the victim impact statements. So what's the appropriate sentence for Jaskirat Singh Sidhu? Susan Ormiston now with what the judge will have to weigh.
There is no precedent for the scale of this case. Truck driver Jaskirat Singh Sidhu has pleaded guilty to 29 charges of dangerous driving, causing death and injury and immeasurable grief. Criminal defense lawyer Mike Nolan in Saskatoon agreed to walk us through what may impact his sentence.
The starting point in analyzing dangerous driving is looking at the mistake or the omission that the driver made at the time. The case law says we don't work backwards from the harm that was caused.
So does the number of casualties, so many in this case, affect the sentence?
That's a very difficult question to answer, Susan, and certainly the families that are affected by this would like it to. The general public would probably like it to. But I'm not sure that judges have necessarily endorsed that line of thinking. because that then puts the harm at the forefront and not the mistake or the omission made by the person.
We don't yet know all the facts, and RCMP forensic report is to come. We do know Sidhu barreled right through a stop sign into the intersection at highway speed. Dangerous driving causing death carries a maximum 14 years, for injury 10 years, and Sidhu faces 29 counts, but case law suggests his sentence could be well below the maximum. A judge must determine Sidhu's moral culpability. Was he distracted or tired? Was he speeding or too inexperienced?
I think we have to look at responsibility through that lens, is what exactly was this offender doing that gave rise to the dangerous driving?
And what if he did nothing else but lose attention or make this fatal mistake?
Then in my mind, a 3-year sentence would probably be the appropriate starting point for thinking about what his degree of responsibility should be after that.
Do you think people will have a tough time with that?
I think they will have an incredibly tough time with that. Historically, Canadian jurisprudence, both on the civil side and criminal side, hasn't seemed to value human life as much as members of the public would like it to.
Nolan defended a trucker 2 years ago. Same charges, dangerous driving causing death and injury. Norman Lavoie missed the warning signs of a construction zone on the highway and plowed into a car waiting to proceed. 3 teens died. A flagman was badly injured. The Crown asked for 6 years. Lavoie got 3 years in prison, within a range of sentencing for dangerous driving and death where alcohol is not a factor. But the Broncos crash is tragically unique, and the judge will have to grapple with so many lost.
When he said guilty to me, I have my closure. If he sends a day, if he spends 10 years, time is irrelevant.
Dad Scott Thomas will be back in Melfort this week with many Broncos families who will have statements for the court.
Explain to me then, what is the purpose of victim impact statements?
Part of the sentencing process is to promote a sense of responsibility in the offender, not just punish the offender. And the purpose is to educate both the court and the offender of how this crime has impacted people.
But it's Sidhu's actions at the core, what he did or failed to do. Pleading guilty will help him.
Mr. Sidhu advised me, I don't want to make things any worse. I can't make things any better, but I certainly don't want to make them worse by having a trial.
Now it's up to Melfort Judge Inez Cardinal to determine what penalty.
I would have to think the judge in this case is going to struggle with the sheer magnitude of the tragedy while trying to keep the focus on the legal principles involved. And I don't know that she can render a decision that's going to satisfy many of the people involved.
Susan Ormiston joins us now from Melfort, Saskatchewan. So Susan, where exactly are you in Melfort?
Yeah, well, this is the community center, and softball practice has ended. They're clearing the gym now to put in a makeshift courtroom. The courthouse in Melfort, about 6,000 people here, was just too small to accommodate all the families and friends that are coming here for this week-long sentencing hearing. So it will be here. The actual site of the collision back on April 6 is about 60 kilometers down the road, and tomorrow we're expecting to hear more facts about what actually happened in that intersection, drawing from the police report. And then there will be 2 to 3 days of victim impact statements from families who, a majority of the Broncos families are coming here to tell the court what this tragedy has meant for them. The defense will summarize what it thinks the driver should get as a sentence, and then, of course, the judge will have to decide. It will be a painful week, Adrian, but at least somewhat of a closure to at least the legal part of this tragedy.
Okay, thanks, Susan. The CBC's Susan Ormiston in Melfort, Saskatchewan tonight.
Still ahead tonight on The National, he once had a promising future on the ice. Connor Crisp shares his story and talks candidly about the concussions that forced him to give it all up.
But first, an unwanted gift showed up just weeks after her miscarriage: baby formula.
I was surprised that some corporation somehow found out not only my address and my name, but also the fact that I was pregnant.
Go Public goes undercover to find out how your information could be shared without your knowledge. Next.
An upsetting package in the mail has a Toronto woman going public tonight. She received baby formula after she had miscarried twins. Turns out personal information she gave a trusted store wound up being shared in ways she never expected. Here's Rosa Marcatelli.
What am I going to do with all this stuff?
The unwelcome Welcome to Parenthood package arrived a few weeks after Kate Mansouri miscarried.
My husband and I, we lost our twin boys in May.
Inside were formula samples from a company she'd never dealt with.
I was surprised that some corporation somehow found out not only my address and my name, but also the fact that I was pregnant.
Mansouri had given those details to a pregnancy clothing chain. She says she had no idea Motherhood Maternity would spread her information around, giving it to several other companies under what it calls its Perks Savings Program.
I assumed that they would be using that to share the promotions at the store.
Our investigation found her information was then sold or shared again and again, by whom is unclear, ending up in the hands of companies outside that Perks program.
Where is the limit of on using the personal data?
On its website, Motherhood Maternity is clear that it shares customers' information. Go Public wanted to find out what happens in store.
So here I am at one of the several malls in different cities that we went to do a test to see exactly what customers are told when they give up all their private information.
Our transparency test found disclosure was all over the map.
So when you do sign up for it, I mean, you will receive all kinds of emails from all kinds of different people.
Oh yeah? Okay, it's good to know. So that information I gave you just stays within the store, right?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Canada's Federal Privacy Commissioner's new guidelines kicked in the new year, encouraging companies to be clear about how they collect and what they do with people's information. Organizations should disclose what personal information is being or may be collected, why it's being collected, how it's used, and exactly who it will be shared with. Privacy advocates say guidelines are okay, but data-hungry industries need to be reeled in with tougher laws.
We need to elevate our protections here in Canada.
It's unacceptable for the corporations to try to cash out on people's private life.
All the companies involved say they take privacy seriously and comply with Canadian privacy laws. They've now removed Mansouri from their marketing lists. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
Of course, if you have a tip for our Go Public team, you can send them an email, gopublic@cbc.ca.
Up next on The National, the story of a promising young hockey player sidelined by concussions. Connor Crisp opens up about the devastating impact of his symptoms and leaving the game he loves.
Hockey is just a game, but it's like all I knew for a long time. So should I have stopped playing sooner? I don't know, maybe, maybe not. I think I made the right decision now.
Hockey thrives on fast speed, fights, and collisions. That can also mean concussions. The numbers have been expressed in all kinds of ways, but they all point in the same direction, and it's not good. It's been estimated that every team in the league will see one or two players miss games due to a concussion. Head injuries that can lead to forced retirements or much worse. Former players like Daniel Carcillo are speaking out about the long-term effects.
Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's disease, you're 80% more likely to contract those three diseases if you have 3 or more concussions. I'd be scared if I was still playing in the NHL, if I was Sidney Crosby, if I was any one of those young kids.
Connor Crisp was one of those kids. He was on the cusp of making it big when he was sidelined by concussions. Tonight, with some tough honesty, he talks about his decision to end his hockey dreams. He told his story to our colleagues at Radio Canada.
I've been through a lot the last 4 years, and there's a lot of good times and there's been a lot of bad times. I think that the hardest part was telling my family that I wasn't going to play. It's a game, you know, hockey's a game, and this is life, and life's no joke. To wake up and to go to bed and have a headache all day, and it's just, you know, enough's enough. I probably suffered through 7 or 8 concussions. My name's Connor Crisp. I just retired from professional hockey, and I'm 24 years old.
Oh, it's so sad in there now.
Oh, I didn't know they closed that.
Yeah, they closed it. It's not the tunnel anymore.
I was born and raised in Alliston, Ontario.
I like how they put these trees here.
The hard part now is my ego, you know, being in a small town, known as a hockey player, and now moving back home. And I had a great opportunity, but now, like, where I'm at, I get a lot of questions and a lot of people that I haven't seen in a long time saying, I hear you're back home, what are you doing? And I just miss being, you know, that NHL professional hockey player atmosphere. When I used to play hockey, I enjoyed fighting. It may sound weird, but there's no better feeling.
Colin Greening and Connor Crisp.
You have 10,000 people in a building that are chanting your name, and you know your teammates are all standing up on the bench supporting you. It's better than getting a goal. I chose to do that. I was never told I had to fight. If I didn't play the way I did, I probably wouldn't have been drafted. I wouldn't have made it as far as I did.
If I was going to a game, I would say, don't fight, Connor. Don't fight this game. And he'd be like, I can't promise you that, Mom.
The scratches, and here is Mathers in the first couple of minutes going to square off with Connor Crisp.
There was a fight 3 years ago. It was my first year in St. John's.
Mathers will drop Crisp with a couple of right hands.
He got a punch in, knocked me to the ice. I got up, went to the box, I was feeling okay.
Head off to the penalty box.
I finished the game, then that night, I started getting bad headaches. So I played Saturday night, and after that I said, I have a concussion. And then really, from that point, I didn't play another game that season, so I really never recovered. I had, you know, a daily headache from the moment I woke up. I had a headache till the moment I went to bed. For 3 years now, really. I still have those headaches.
He was down, he was stressed, because I think he knew that he did need to take himself out of the lineup. He's trying to climb that ladder to get to the NHL, and what I didn't realize at the time was that, you know, it's not like calling in sick to work and coming back a few days. You know, you take yourself out of that lineup and someone else is swooping in there and taking your spot, and you don't know if you're gonna be back on that bench.
Everything was just negative. Anytime I thought I was feeling good, it was almost like I would manifest another headache. I would tell myself, you know, maybe you're not okay. Now I have anxiety. Now the anxiety's bringing along headaches. It was just like a snowball effect. It was incredibly tough every single day. Sitting in a dark room, resting. I ended up signing a contract in Toledo, East Coast Hockey League. I had an incident in practice where I was hit into a post. My headaches were back and my vision started bothering me. And then from that point, the entire season, I just like wasn't healthy.
He would get in the car after a game and I would say, you know, babe, you played so good tonight. And he's like, I could barely see out there. You know, like just tunnel vision. Once I started doing my own research, it was scary to see what could happen. And, you know, the fact that he could potentially not be himself in X amount of years.
Ex-NHL players who used to play a tough role. You see people passing away from CTE and discovering stuff like this. There's some cases out there that you read about and it's scary, you know. You kind of read that I'm on this path, you know, this is what I'm feeling now. Some days I'll feel super excited, super positive, and then out of nowhere, a snap of a finger, I could just be in a bad mood. And I never used to be like that.
Definitely mood swings. like a long lineup at Tim Hortons. Like we'd be having a great morning and all of a sudden he was just pissed.
For anxiety, for anxiousness.
I can't imagine how hard it was for him to have to, you know, hang up his skates and, you know, make that like public announcement about retiring, and because he's so young.
I knew that I couldn't push him. He had to make that decision on his own. The YouTube video really got him, and it was fabulous, and I think that made his decision.
I would give back all of my money. I would give back all of the time. You can take my name off the Stanley Cup twice over. I can't live like that anymore. You know, I just can't.
I don't have a Stanley Cup to give up. I don't have millions of dollars to give up, but yeah, there's a lot I'd trade in to, you know, just feel normal. I was so close, you know, I was so close to making it. It's tough, because I love the game, so.
In the hockey world, you're in this bubble, and you don't know what's outside of the bubble. And Connor was really stuck in that bubble and not realizing that there's an entire world outside of this.
I seen the movie Concussion with Will Smith, who played the scientist Omalu.
I found a disease that no one has ever seen.
I was nervous to watch that movie because when it came out, I was, you know, going through the original Concussion.
Oh, we talked to Omalu about you.
Yeah?
Yeah, and we want to show you.
That'd be awesome.
Do you want to see?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
This is human life we're talking about. And people like him should speak out, should get to the mountaintop and shout out loud so that parents listen. Do you want to do this to your son? He's 24 years old. He's 24. Because of a game? Why are we placing sports above the humanity of mankind?
I don't know, he just sounds like a pretty powerful speaker, right? And you know, hockey is just a game. But it's like all I knew for a long time. So should I have stopped playing sooner? Like, I don't know, maybe. You know, maybe not. I think I made the right decision now. I'm just sick of feeling like this, so it's nice to kind of hear him just mention the fact that hockey's just a game, you know? And that there's more to life than hockey. And that's kind of like where I'm at now and where I'm struggling to, I guess, move on. I used to just like love going to the rink. I don't know, I got to see my buddies every day at the rink, right? So now, I got a lot of good friends around here, but it's more I see them on weekends.
Tight turn, your feet are moving, stop.
The reason I love what I'm doing now is because to kind of fill in the spot of my teammates, now the kids that I work with, unbelievable.
Work hard, okay? Good, thank you. Good work, you guys, good work.
I do wish that I was more honest about how I felt about him playing and my worry.
Is there things I would do differently going through this last 3 years? Yeah, for sure.
What is that next step?
Just when I first had that concussion, you know, I started training again too early and started skating too early, and I still had headaches.
It's almost like a little bit of that sparkle has gone down a little bit, just because you know that he's in pain. It's frustrating.
I wouldn't say I'd be an advocate for no fighting. I think it's part of the game. I think it controls the game. I think it's important. I honestly do.
But that's what got you down.
And that's what got me down, but I don't know. You can ask a lot of people. I could have got hit from behind. A couple of concussions I had were hits.
Connor Crisp.
That was the only fight I had that I suffered a concussion. Out of the 7 or 8 I had, that was the only one.
I do worry. Because he still has the headaches every day. He still suffers with them. And we have done everything. And he still suffers. For what? For what? Score a goal? It's not worth it. It's not worth it. The glory, it's not worth it.
You saw Connor working with some kids in that story. He's actually started running a new hockey school. And as for his health, he says he has more good days now.
Incredibly powerful. Up next on The National, both sides are digging in tonight in the fight for power in Venezuela. We'll look at how the political crisis in that country is being watched closely here in ours.
It's almost like having two lives, because you have your life here, your work, but at the same time you're checking yourself on every time you can, because you know things are developing there.
So look at a story you'll see here tomorrow night, the next in our series on sleep. A group of teenagers talk candidly about how little they're getting and how that is affecting their lives.
I had problems with almost falling asleep in class. I'd be listening to like what they read up on the board, and I'd just feel my head dip and I'd shoot right back up. It was pretty bad.
Like your brain isn't awake to understand everything, and then call on you and you don't know the answer, and then kind of just freeze.
Sometimes I don't even go. Like, I will fake sick and I'll stay in bed all day. I don't function properly. I don't do anything in class. I fall asleep. I snap at people. It's not good.
Here are some other stories we're watching on The National tonight. In Brazil, fears of a second mining dam collapse forced 24,000 people to flee. It also put a temporary halt to the search for victims of Friday's breach. Nearly 60 people died and about 300 are still missing. The second dam now appears stable, but a mining expert is warning of the potential for more disasters.
The reality is that most companies in Canada and on the planet build what we call upstream dams, and these are the ones that fail.
We're also getting a look at some satellite images of the scene. This is the before, and this is what it looked like yesterday. Brazil's government is promising an investigation.
I think it's frankly extraordinary that the Duke of Edinburgh has seen to make this public apology.
Prince Philip has written a letter to the woman injured in the crash he was in earlier this month. She broke a wrist and later criticized the lack of royal response. The 97-year-old prince said he was sorry for his part in the accident and suggested he didn't see her vehicle because the sun was in his eyes. Polish government officials and Holocaust survivors mark the 74th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz today. It's International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Well over 1 million Jews, Roma, and others died at the camp. Altogether, 6 million Jews were put to death by the Nazis, and it appears that some Canadians know very little about the Holocaust.
Fewer and fewer Canadians can say they've ever met a Holocaust survivor or have heard one speak. And of course, fewer Canadians have lived through the experience of the war.
A survey found, in fact, that more than 1 in 5 young Canadian adults said they'd never heard of or weren't sure if they'd heard of the Holocaust. When asked to name a concentration camp, 49% said they were not sure or gave an incorrect response.
To the political crisis in Venezuela now, where the question remains, what will the military do? The two men, who both consider themselves president, made dueling appeals today to Venezuela's armed forces. Self-declared President Juan Guaido called on the country's soldiers to back his opposition movement as his supporters delivered amnesty offers to military bases across the country. Fuego! But in an effort to prove he has the backing of the armed forces, embattled President Nicolas Maduro oversaw war games today, telling troops Guaido's leading a coup and urging them to remain loyal to him. But there's already been one high-profile defection. Maduro's top military envoy to the U.S. threw his support behind Guaido. Solo faltas tú, soldado, amigo! And raising the temperature even further, today Maduro rejected an international ultimatum to call elections within 8 days. He has been warned by Donald Trump's national security advisor that if there's any violence or intimidation towards U.S. personnel or Guaido or Venezuela's National Assembly, that there will be a significant response. What that means exactly is a bit of a mystery, just like the future of Venezuela. And with Canada backing the opposition, we wondered how some of the thousands of Venezuelans living in this country are feeling about this crisis. So we asked Briar Stewart to try to find out.
Look at the poor guy. They're throwing the tear gas directed at him.
These scenes are keeping Valentina Ruiz Leota and Laura Aveledo up at night. Leota moved here in 2013 after being mugged at gunpoint, and both still have family back home.
It's almost like having two lives, because you have your life here, your work, but at the same time you're checking yourself on every time you can, because you know things are developing there.
At least 20 people have been killed in protests in recent days, but Aveledo says the developments have given many people struggling with hyperinflation and widespread food shortages a glimmer of hope, but also unease.
You know that something is brewing in the country, but you don't know when things are going to explode.
They're grateful the Canadian government has joined the U.S. and other Western and South American countries, throwing support behind Juan Guaido, the leader of the National Assembly and now interim president. But they feel the NDP's stance is short-sighted. In a statement, leader Jagmeet Singh urged that Canada should not simply follow the U.S.'s foreign policy, particularly given its history of self-interested interference in the region. One of his MPs went even further. Nikki Ashton tweeted, "We cannot support an agenda of economic or military coups."
I'm happy for a change.
But Rolando Sandrea and his family are glad the international community is involved. They moved to Alberta more than a decade ago, one of a few thousand Venezuelans who came to work in the oil patch.
Okay, now black beans.
After being laid off, he opened this restaurant. He too is watching the events unfold in Venezuela with a lot of optimism.
In my heart, after 20 years of this regime that is right now in Venezuela, I'm happy, of course. I know that it's a hard transition, but it will be benefit for all the people in Venezuela.
Like everyone we spoke to, the real worry now is that Maduro could still prevail.
I think for me that's the biggest fear, because it's, once again, a lot of noise for nothing.
And they worry their families back in Venezuela could find themselves in an even more desperate situation. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Moment is up next on The National. And tonight it's a very Canadian one, caught amidst that highway pileup we told you about earlier. But first.
It's going to be very difficult to beat.
In case you missed it, this weekend's annual NHL skills competition wasn't meant to become a full-blown battle of the sexes, but it kind of went there anyway. Female players were invited this year as demonstrators, meaning they couldn't collect cash prizes. But one of them, Kendall Coyne Schofield, was then invited to take part as an actual participant in the fastest skater competition when Nathan McKinnon dropped out. She didn't win, but she gave Connor McDavid a serious run for his money. Meanwhile, Brianna Decker, who took part as a demonstrator, was incredible in the passing challenge, which basically requires the subtlety and precision of a ninja who is also a surgeon. Now, officially, Leon Draisaitl won with a time of 1 minute 9 seconds. But unofficially, Decker beat him by a full 3 seconds. And that triggered a social media explosion under the hashtag #PayDecker. People argued that if hockey is serious about inclusion, Decker should, well, get paid. And now she has $25,000 from a hockey equipment company impressed with her performance. For its part, the NHL will donate $25,000 to each of the female players' selected charities. A snowy day and a bad stretch of ice made for some tough going today on Quebec's highways. As you saw earlier in the program, this was one of the scenes, a major pileup, but fortunately just minor injuries. But here's what you didn't see. Our moment of the day doesn't get much more Canadian than this. Somewhere Somewhere in that long, long line of vehicles are some boys apparently returning from a hockey tournament. Well, you can never let a patch of pavement go to waste. Faster than you could say, "Go Habs, go!" Out come the sticks. A spontaneous game of road hockey. No running, no checking, no goals, in fact, no goalie. Just a moment to warm you in winter. A quintessential Canadian moment. Enjoy. You're welcome.
I love the ingenuity there, and I was just watching that last little guy, his feet slipping on the ice. No wonder 75 cars smacked into each other. But as you say, no major injuries, so that's a good day. And good for Canadians for keeping their cool in the cold.
No kidding. I was thinking about what I would do, or what I do when I'm stuck in traffic. It happened to me on Friday in this town. It was crazy, stuck in traffic for an hour. What do you do when you're stuck in traffic?
Get irritated, panic, stay quiet to myself.
Oh, good. I just sing. I just sing. Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody needs to hear that.
Don't touch my phone, otherwise I'll get arrested. Yeah, that's all I do. That's the National for January 27th. Good night, everyone.